In this second session, as I mentioned, that we are going to discuss and elaborate more on the historical development of ideas from the very early period of our human civilization. But before that, I would like to take a little bit a review of last week meeting. That last week we have discussed about sort of some ideas that have shaped our contemporary and have been part of our life in our everyday living. Yesterday we were talking about the sort of sovereignty ideas, and then democratic reform and law enforcement and even climate change. These all ideas actually have been part of our life and the way we see our environment, our societies, and how we should act towards and responding to everybody and towards everything that's going on in our life. But the question is, it's very basic. So, do you know that when this idea comes to your mind, and I guess maybe we know when the idea, but I'm sure that most of us actually don't really aware or put that question, should ask whether this idea is right or wrong. When the idea comes to our mind in the first place, we don't really aware of this question, because those many ideas have been part of our understanding since we know about ideas, perhaps since junior high school or even senior high schools. Those kind of ideas have been part of our discussion. For example, it's very understandable that everyone now see each other in the class as equal as they are. For example, you don't see your friends above you or below you because of their ethnics, or because they different comes from different part of you. You or anybody who from Jakarta doesn't see other students from out of Jakarta as below them or above them. They see as equal as they are. The question is why we have this kind of understanding, because previously in hundreds of years or even less than 100 of years, some people see differently. Some people see that different ethnics are representing different level of society, a different level of ideas, and how to react to this social interaction. So the question is, how come this idea come to your mind? That's a very basic question, and that's applied to other ideas. How do you know that democracy is the better choice for Indonesia, for example? And how do you know certain policies or economic government policies might bring more beneficial profits to society compared to different sort of approach of policies? We don't know how these ideas come to our mind. That's what this session, and might be one or two sessions ahead, we elaborate more on the trajectory of the birth of ideas. All right, I believe some of you are familiar with these ideas. These ideas have been around us for quite some time. Capitalism, liberalism, nationalism. There's also an idea about protectionism, Marxism, communism, radicalism, fundamentalism, and environmentalism. All right. I think these ideas have been known among students, and I believe you as well are already familiar with. But I just want to have a quick opinion of you about these ideas. Okay, who wants to try first? What's ideas that you know so far about capitalism? Anybody wants to share What do you understand about capitalism? Wildan, do you know anything about capitalism? Hello? Hello, Wildan? Are you there? Okay. How about who is it? Saida?
Yes, sir. I think
Do you have
is
any
I don't
idea?
know that the point of yes about capitalism is I think I don't know more and specific about capitalism. Still, I difficult to define it.
Mm.
But I think based on my search and based on what have I read, I think capitalism is an economic system is in which private individuals or business own capital goods. The production of goods and service is based on supply and demand in general market, known as market economy and etc. I think that.
Okay, very good point, Saida. Thank you. Um, what's the difference between nationalism and sovereignty? Is there anyone here who wants to share? How about Raihan? Are you there, Raihan? Hello. Hmm. How about Amara? Are you there?
Hello, sir.
Okay. Do you know any idea about the difference between nationalism and sovereignty?
I haven't read much about sovereignty, but for nationalism, I think we already learned about it in schools. So I think we get uh, a pretty standard idea of nationalism. But about sovereignty, I haven't read much about it.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point too. Yeah, everyone now has an idea about nationalism, right? You belongs to certain country, certain state, and you love your country, right? Uh, that's a modern idea. Previously, not all societies believe in this kind of idea. That's why it's very important to understand the roots of this idea later on. I think liberalism, you know better than other ideas here. But who wants to share what liberalism means in your opinion? Okay, who wants to share? Naufal, are you there?
Yeah, but
Okay, are you all right?
yeah, I'm still not feeling well, but I think yeah, I can keep up with this course.
Okay, yeah, good. Do you have any idea about liberalism?
Mm, I only know a little bit
All right,
based
it's fine.
on the so it's like about what do you call it, freedom, but
Okay,
liber,
yeah, that's right. Liberal, right?
yeah, liberal liberty. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think that's all I
it's
can say.
related, everything related to freedom. Okay, okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, but
Uh, Rahma, are you there, Rahma? Hello. Okay, Siti Hajar, how about you? Are you there? Okay, not responding. Reza, are you there, Reza?
Hello, sir. I'm
Okay,
here.
how are you this morning?
Uh, Quite panicking because I have internet connection issues.
Oh, really? Okay. Are you at home or in Jogja?
Yes, I'm at home, but there's currently a like hard rain
Okay.
in Pontianak, so yeah.
Ah, I see. Okay, okay. Hopefully you're doing well. Do you know? Have you ever heard or understand about communism? What's your opinion on the idea of communism?
Oh, communism is
Yes.
in a simple explanations. Communism is very in contrast with capitalism, where I mean both seek for obviously developments and yada 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 in economy, but communism strive for like more intervention from the government in order to regulate the economy. Meanwhile, capitalism prefer a more freedom like in the system.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you. It's a very good brief explanation. So it's the contradiction, the very contradiction of capitalism and liberalism, right?
Yes.
The more weight on government intervention on everything, literally. All right, maybe last opinion from who else here? Henny, are you here, Henny? Are you there? Henny Nopita?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever heard or understand about what radicalism means? Just in your opinion. Hello? Hello, Henny? Are you still there? Okay, we.
Oh, sir, am I lost?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever heard or understand about what radicalism means? Just in your opinion.
I didn't know a lot about radicalism, but is that about the quality or state of being radical?
Sorry?
Or, is that something believe that society needs to be changed and the changes are only possible through revolutionary?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something like that, sir?
Okay, so you see how people believe in something and then they want to change. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good point. Good start. Okay. Radicalism was taken from the word radic. Radic means is the very root of something. If you believe in something and you try to defend the very basic idea of that idea, that's radicalism means you're really passionate about and you try to defend the very basic. You don't want to have changes on that idea. So in response, when there are many ideas that want to change that idea, you responding by opposing uh, uh, those new ideas that radicalism is. But later on, these sort of ideas develop and have different interpretations among societies. But that's something I mean we can discuss further. At least you have a familiar with this sort of ideas that already put in the screen. All right, now this is a very important question. Why we have to study ideology as part of an international relations student? There are numbers of answers, but at least we can discuss 4 reasons why ideas or ideology or political ideas uh, are important for our understanding. The first, that ideology has created divided world. So this is an example of how the world has been divided into Western bloc and Eastern bloc, right? My question is, uh, what's the implication of the world once divided? Now we don't have this, division, right? The strict division. But previously, we have how the world has been divided into 2 blocks. So my question is, what's the implication? Why this division has been very important in shaping the world politics? Okay, I want to ask some of you. Rahmat, are you there? Hello? responding. Anissa, Aulia, are you there, Anissa? Hello, Anissa. Okay, still not responding. Maulana, do you know anything about this kind of division of the world, Western Bloc and Eastern Bloc? Hello? You're not responding. I'll back again to Saida. Do you know anything about this, Saida?
I think that I don't know the definitely of Western Bloc and also Eastern Bloc, but suddenly I think that's the black people or the white people in Europe. So there is a war or threat between them. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. So it's actually the division between the United States in many Western allies, which associated with the United States of America. And then another bloc, what we call Eastern Bloc, is Soviet Union. So the two bloc has been divided based on different ideas. Western Bloc believed that capitalism and liberalism as the very foundation of government, while Soviet Union at the time, especially after the Second World War, uh, this is also related to other subjects on world history, world political history. I think you have this subject, right? Who teach you the subject, history of world politics?
Mr. Takdir, sir.
Okay, yeah, might be some of his stories about this kind of division will come up eventually in your in that subject. But in brief, that this is the division between two superpower country at that time after the Second World War, the United States with liberal capitalism and Soviet Union with communism. So Soviet Union once become a very powerful country in the world. Now transformed into Russia, and different small countries declared an independence like Chechnya and many other Eastern Europe. So they believe socialists and communists as the foundation of government. So different ideas have divided these countries, and an implication of that, it's not simple, as you will find out in another subject, that the implication is not just the conflict, an open war between two countries and their allies, but also towards far beyond that, especially to Southeast Asia. You know what? Indonesia has been very much influenced by this idea, because as a result of conflict between Western and Eastern, Indonesia almost you know uh, uh, engage with conflict. One of the idea of our foreign policy that once declared, if ever heard about Indonesian foreign policy, there is a belief that Indonesian foreign policy should stand on the idea of bebas aktif. Bebas aktif means we don't want to be part of Western Bloc and we don't want to be part of Eastern Bloc, because as according to the founding fathers of our country, Vice President then Bung Hatta, he believed that Indonesia, like on the small boat, and we are in the middle of the ocean, and if we sort of slightly to the west or slightly to the east, it will harm our small boat because it's very vulnerable. And at the time, one a very Good example to show is that Vietnam. Vietnam has been was divided into this sort of conflict. So as a result, the war between Soviet Union and the United States was happen in Vietnam, and many countries don't want to happen in the same story as Vietnam. Second, ideology has contributed to the caution of war. This is related to what I've mentioned to you in the case of Vietnam. But a larger story about war has been colored in modern civilization before before the Cold War. This is Western and Eastern Bloc was a story about Cold War, Perang Dingin. But before that, Second World War too has been shaped by different ideas of ideology. You know that Second World War was the war between the United States and its allies who believe in many ideas, uh, even though different ideas, but they have contradict with another idea of fascism. If you read story, if you still remember some story in high school, that Second World War, that was the war between group of countries, Japan, Germany, especially Western Germany under Adolf Hitler, and Italy under Mussolini, and the rest of the world, especially Western countries, the United States, Soviet Union, most of European countries, they oppose the idea of fascism. Uh, Part of as a reason, part of an expansion of fascist ideas, that's the expansion of Japan's military forces into China, into Korea, before the division between South and North, and to Indonesia, although it was very brief, like 3 or 4 years. But that's part of the fascism idea, that it believes that other race, other ethnics, other countries were far below them and is subject to be, being colonized, sort of things. So how the idea have drive, war into an open conflict between countries. And the third ideology also has created conflict at domestic level. Uh, we can trace back to an example in Indonesia. Our conflicts through histories has been shaped through different ideas. When early on our independence, we've seen this conflict between communist ideas, socialist ideas, with nationalist ideas, and Islam as well. You know the story about Communist Party of Indonesia, right? Okay, I think you're familiar with that. That's also part of a different ideas. That's the very high example of a conflict, because many member of Communist Party disagree with nationalists, and most of the nationalists see that communist ideas was a threat to nationalism. So the conflict have took for hundreds of thousands of people in Indonesia. They would die because of this conflict. We don't see, we don't we are not at this stage uh, see who's right and who's wrong, because we were not living in that period. But we understand that different ideas has caused war between different groups, different ideas. And I think currently this conflict at domestic level also appear in the middle stage or very low stage. We've seen this differently, even in political campaign during the general election, right? So even I heard many stories about this, that during the presidential election in 2019, even members of families, because they have different ideas about supporting Jokowi and also supporting Prabowo, even within one member families they have different ideas, and sometimes not few but quite many that they have a conflict uh, between friends, between families, as a result of different ideas. And lastly, the ideas also move people to have a mobilization. They try to force people into rally expressing their ideas. So, but what ideology means actually, especially in relations to the last example I mentioned, how ideology drive people into mass rally, move people into act into something. According to Haywood, that ideology more or less as a coherent sort of ideas that provide you with something that can move you, with something preference, that you can see things and you act towards something because you have those ideas. You believe in something, then you have to act according to that idea. Yeah? Uh, this is according to Hayward, uh, that you intend to preserve something or modify something, and even you overthrow the existing system. So what we believe now is part of a long story of development of ideas, changing into ideas and even replacing ideas. For example, in Western Europe, in Germany right now, most people believe in liberalism and capitalism. But before 1990s, during the Cold War, you know, many people in Germany have divided into two ideas: liberalism and communism. In the eastern part of Germany, they believe that communist, socialist as the idea of political government, while in the western, believe mostly about liberal capitalism. But now, since the east and the west has been integrated together, before that they have a very tall wall, but now they've become one and integrated into one country and mostly believe it. It means that the previous ideas of social and communism has been changed into liberal capitalism for the whole people or most people. That's why, according to McClellan, idea is very complicated. It's not an easy thing to understand. It's elusive. It's not an easy to explain because you can't see ideas, but you can see, how ideas move people into act to something. Why is that? Let's refer to the last definition, because ideas not just help you to see something, see what it's going on around you and around the world, but actually creating something into your mind about what should be happen, what the ideal, way of doing something. That's why if you have something different, what's going on and different to your idea, you want to change something. That's why it's that's why it explains why idea can move people, but also explain why ideas, it's a very unique and it's not easy to understand. All right, there are many sources of ideas. We can talk about religion, culture, history, even science. Now we jump into civilization that shape ideas. There are at least three civilizations that contributing to the modern political philosophy of political ideas. Any one of you can mention three civilizations that's very important for shaping our political ideas nowadays. Anyone? What's the first civilization?
Ancient Greek.
Sorry?
Greece.
Ancient Greek.
Yeah.
That's right. What else? What?
Roman.
Roman. Okay. What else? All right. How about anyone have thought about Islam?
Yes.
Yeah,
Arabic
sure. Yeah.
something.
Yes. Okay. There are three at least that it's really related to the modern philosophy. That's something that we believe now. First, ancient Egypt. Sorry, ancient Greek. Uh, that's the start of modern political philosophy. And second, Islam. And the third, Western civilization through an Enlightenment period, and later on continue into a industrial revolution. What we are believe now, it's a really closely to a Western civilization about uh, Enlightenment and industrial revolution, but it's traced back into Greek ideas. But how the Western know something about Greek ideas? They knew about this kind of ideas from Islamic civilization. That's why many people see that enlightenment as Renaissance means re-emerge into something, re-emerge light. They see something bright. Uh, Means that previously there was once a period that already put light into ideas. That's Greek. And Islam, Islamic rule was in the middle of that, as a bridge between Greek and Western. That's why many Western ideas, many Western science was translated into English from Arabic, because many philosophers, Islamic philosophers, have been studied Greek ideas during the start from 18th centuries until 13th centuries. We know many of Islamic philosophers has been were named as translator of Greek ideas and commentators. One example is Ibn Rushd, Averroes. He was named as the translator of Aristotle's because he studied Aristotle's and translate many Aristotle's ideas into an Arabic sort of written book, and then being studied into Western civilization. Okay, Greek political life is very important to study because it gives us sort of ideas, the early beginning of what we know about rational ideas, institutionalism, and law. Because at the time, they already introduced something about citizenship, something that now we understand as nationalism, sovereignty. This is traced back into the idea of a Greek society. And also the concept of ethos or league. League means that you are belong into certain members. Like everyone from Sumatra, they established associasi mahasiswa Medan in Jogja. That's part of something belong to something, right? Group of people. An association. A polis. This is also an embryo of what we know about the country with strict territorial line and membership, and also about the right of people being recognized, although in different levels to what we understand right now. At the time, it's very simple, but at least they know about citizens have a right into something. How about social life? Social life also influence what we know about many things in this current situation. One example is that most of you now believe in liburan is important, right? Entertainment is important. Spending time with friends, watching movies, going with family into holiday sort of things, that's a very important. That sort of idea was invented during age ancient uh, Greek. The term leisure was created at a time in order to spending time with friends discussing something, many things, but some people like to discuss about politics, leadership, and many other things. And also the concept of close group or intimacy. This is a concept that I think you found during your high school, perhaps, that you have a very close friend, right? Gang, do you have any gang in high school? That's a, small number of people, 2 or 3 or 4, that you can share everything from good to bad thing, right? That's a very close group. You even closer to them compared to your brother or sisters. That's intimacy. Um, Political partnership. This is also very important to see what's going on in the society right now, because at Athens at the time, we know that they already established a assembly, what we call as a parliament, and council, like executive, who you know who's responsible for the policy and executing the policy, and magistrate, who is responsible for doing the job. Atennial council, like ministries in the current period, and magistrate, like something who is doing the practical job, and general related to military officers. Okay, still related. Okay, there's one concept also is very important. What we know from the stories, that they created concept of sophists, came from the word Sophia, right? So who loves wisdom. So this is most members or philosophers who know about wisdom, professional teachers offering worldly wisdom and lessons. Most government officials, if they want to ask something, they ask to this sophist, and it's very unique and interesting because they train youth, Athenian youth at a time, into what they call a symposium. They train by giving education, between giving lesson, sort of the embryo of university at the time, where young people come and study something, and to become a sophist, to become an educated adult. So it's very similar to the modern ideas of university, that you come to university, you want to study, and you become wise after graduating from the university. Okay, these are the three philosophers during the Greek period, and I think you can name this picture. Anyone can name who are in this picture?
Plato.
Plato, okay, and then
Socrates.
Socrates, and
Socrates.
one last. Okay, let's see. First, Socrates. Okay, Socrates is the teacher of Plato, and Plato is the teacher of Aristotle, right? Socrates has been, the teacher of many philosophers. What very important of his idea is that he invented that human being is very important. So everyone should be equal and being respected. So that's why he believed that every society has values that can be shared, what we know as an absolute good. So you have to believe that everyone has a potential to be good. Okay. So he put an emphasis about idea and question. If you wants to be wise, and you can develop critical thinking by questioning something. Plato start, the tradition of writing. Uh, his teacher was not that into writing, mostly about oral stories and explaining something. But Plato started the way writing ideas. One of his famous book is The Republic, and one of his ideas in that book is that he disagree with democracy, because democracy, according to Plato, it's too much freedom for society, as the society at the time consists of different levels. There were uneducated societies, people, there were workers and even slaves. So if you put democracy as a system, that will provide a chaos interaction, and that's not good for a government. So it allows tyranny and abuse of power. So he proposed that the government should be ruled by the philosopher king, who know about wisdom, the sophist. That when he decides something, the policy should be based on the best interest, and the one is capable of doing that is the philosopher king. The aristocracy, who are an educated class of society at that time. His uh, student Aristotle might be slightly have a different idea, but he developed a thinking into writing and providing a more broad comparison. That's why he was considered as the father of Western philosopher, because he tried to combine and provide different options from political ideas. For example, the way of governance, he believed that each system can bring good and also can bring bad. For example, as his teacher doesn't agree with democracy, but Aristotle believed that democracy can be good and can be bad. Let's start with monarchy. Monarchy is good if the leader or the king uh, were born as a good person. He might address public good, but if his personality is selfish and doesn't care about the people, might turn into a tyranny. And that's also aristocracy. He explained that aristocracy, according to Plato, is the best way of governance, but Aristotle see that yes, aristocracy can be good if this sort of small number of educated people address the common good, but if they are just care about their inner circle, might creating the oligarchy of political system. Oligarchy means you share something just in a small number of people. It's mostly about political elites. And democracy also can be bad. He agrees with Plato, but democracy also can be good if democracy is arranged and prepared with sort of regulations. And that's something we know about democracy nowadays. Democracy is not something that we consider, as the best political system, but it provides the best among worst option. The good things about democracy now compared to previous one is that democracy now already being you know being created with plans, with conditions, so everyone involved in the political system already know about the consequences as a result of many different rules And also he tried to explain about separation of power. So governance should be divided into legislative rule, as executive and judicative, something that we know about trias politica. And later on, they developed it into a sophisticated idea by different philosophers. We're going to discuss about that in other sessions.